Now, you're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod. I'm delighted this evening to be joined by Greg Lally and former Loughrea hurler John Dooley to look ahead to Loughrea's All-Ireland semi-final this weekend against Slaughtneil at 1:30 on Sunday in Parnell Park, live on TG Car as well. John, obviously, I'll come to you first, Loughrea man. What's the excitement levels like on a week like this leading into the All-Ireland semi-final?
Yeah, sure. It's brilliant. It's brilliant to be involved. Now there's great excitement amongst the town there and the club. It's a bit unusual to be seeing the Christmas lights up with the flags, but yeah, great excitement. Kids are really buying into it up in the schools and that because I don't know, they were off the week before the county final now, but full flow, great excitement, and yeah, can't wait for Sunday to roll around now.
It's definitely made the winter shorter for you anyways, has it?
Oh, for sure, yeah, for sure. And sure, it's all hurling talk. Like you go up to town there for your groceries or for a pint or anything. It's all hurling talk. It's great to be involved this deep into the year. But I wouldn't like to be training in it now. But they seem to be doing well up there. But yeah, great excitement, great excitement. We're all trying to figure out how now to find Parnell Park and how to get there and find parking on the Sunday before Christmas in Dublin should be tricky, but listen, they're good problems. They're good problems.
Yeah, Craig, it's really where every Galway club's dreams to be.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, Paul. It's a reflection, I suppose, of Loughrea's hard work over the last 4 or 5 years that they've obviously last year and this year they've got to that point, and it's the dream really, like, isn't it? And it'd be great to be heading into Christmas, be preparing for an Ireland final and having that for the next couple of weeks. But yeah, look, like it's amazing. Like you'd be thinking when it was changed, who'd like to be hurling in December? But sure, it's what it's all about, isn't it? And as John said there, like I know the trainings mightn't be the nicest at the minute to be cold and you be a few minutes warming up and you go out in the pitch, but you won't be long forgetting about the cold and the rain, especially on Sunday if it comes down. When you get to experience, not many lads get to experience in an Ireland semi-final or final for that matter. So great opportunity.
You would have experienced it with Gort in the past, Craig. It really brings a community together, doesn't it? And it really brings them as close as they can, really.
Yeah, like I suppose it's just the next level on really. Like from it's a different kind of a feel completely to any county or club game within the county. You could play 15, 20 years of those games, but when you get involved in an Ireland semi-final, it feels different, I suppose, and you know the whole country's watching, and you have that opportunity to get into the Holy Grail there on in Croke Park on an Ireland final day, and like you don't know when it'll come around again. Like club championship will come around every year, but something like this you just never know. Like, and especially with the Loughrea team, and John will vouch for this. Like, especially the heartbreak after last year's semi final. I'm sure they're quietly in the back of their mind all year. That if they could do the double, that they get another chance at it and a chance to rewrite the wrongs, I suppose.
You often hear people say, Craig, that these are opportunities that are rare. They don't come around that often. Can you think about that when you're a player from your own experience going into it? Because it is rare and it is unique, these opportunities.
I think you think about it, Paul, but you don't appreciate it until 5, 10 years later. Like now, I'm looking back and say it was 2014. It's 11 years ago now. Like, and geez, I'm appreciating it more every year as it goes on. That we were there. Obviously, we didn't beat Ballyhale, but it was. I suppose when you're in the mix of it and when you're in the throes of really, and I suppose the way Loughrea have been for the last couple of years, competing in semi-finals and county finals and stuff like that. You're probably caught up so much in it that you don't get a chance to reflect on it. And I suppose they won't even think about that on Sunday. It'll be another game for them, and I'm sure all the Loughrea management will be saying that it's just another game and get over the line and you're back into another final. And I suppose in years to come they can reflect more on it.
John, I'm sure you want uh, the players to be joining you maybe Sunday evening. And obviously, you were part of the last team that got to an All Ireland semi final, but these players have to match your team now.
Oh, they've well surpassed our team now. We're only a shower of mullickers compared to them nowadays, I think anyway. But no, like it had to be fantastic to win it. The guys will forfeit their turkey and ham on Christmas Day easily if they can get to the final. But yeah, like Yeah, as Greg was saying, they're not too pushed about whether it's an All Ireland semi final. These guys they're just going out and they're playing every game in front of them. They're doing their homework in the opposition. They're doing getting their uh, their touch right up in training and the whole lot. And it's another game really for them. But as Greg said, when you look back in years, the order, the magnitude of the games is huge. Like, but they said it's while it's happening in front of them, they don't really notice that. So yeah, we'll hopefully now they'll get over the line on Sunday, and we can have a few celebratory pints on Sunday night. But the lads can let their hair down for another few days again.
You mentioned celebrations there. The last time you were obviously on, we were looking ahead to the county final. What were the celebrations like? Because it did really seem very special, even the back to back and everything that happened a few days after the county final for Loughrea.
Yeah, I would have magic a few days now. It was sort of different. I think last year where there was sort of there was sense of relief more so than anything, and we sort of really didn't know how to celebrate. Didn't we? Just just do what came. Yeah, it was hard. But this year now was kind of different. It actually fell lovely on the Saturday night because we're all out late in the Saturday. They didn't have a homecoming until the Sunday, and the Sunday was really special then because we were up in the field during the day. All the kids were out on the pitch, and all the families were there, and the players came up, and they weren't rushing to get down the town or anything like that. It was a lovely, lovely couple of hours up on the pitch, and sure, we had a great day Sunday then. And the Thomas's lads came in, fair play to them, and we'd a good old chat with them. But yeah, I think I left it after Sunday anyway, but I think the lads went on for another few days. They seemed to put in a good innings, and but yeah, it was a special. So it was. I think we certainly enjoyed it more because we weren't. There wasn't a sense of relief, if you get me. Um, but yeah, it was a lovely few days. Actually, it really was great.
How special was that session? Obviously it's been mentioned quite a bit, the training session the team had with the underage.
There was a lovely evening up there actually. I'd say we had the guts of 80 kids up there, and the lads they're really good with them. A lot of them are coaching those underage teams as it is, so they're well familiar with them. And even some of the older lads in the team, their kids were up, poking around. That's Neil Keary had his little lad there, and Tom Hooban, and a few more of them. But all the kids they were just beyond excited. Like it was brilliant. It was lovely to see it up there.
The break, Craig. Obviously, this Slaughtneil game now for Loughrea. The guts of 7 weeks. They're heading into this one. Is it a challenge?
It probably is in some ways, but like I suppose there's probably different aspects you could be positive about as well. Like I'm sure that there's probably been a few niggles after the county final and maybe injuries and stuff like that, and maybe lads that weren't up to pace for because I suppose the quarter semi and the final in Galway comes every 2 weeks. Like it's fairly quick and fast, so maybe those 7 weeks were good for other lads to get back and get up to pace. Maybe some lads needed a rest as well, so it can work in mysterious ways, I suppose, and you just hope that the quality of the challenge matches that were played in between maybe were able to get lads back up to the level again. But look, I suppose on the flip side of that, in Ulster, I suppose Slaughtneil really had their test in the Ulster semi final. So the Ulster final wasn't really of much benefit to them. They won it fairly easy. So they're probably thinking the same way that albeit they had a match, it wasn't really too much use. So their probably break wasn't as it probably was a bit longer than what they thought it'd be. So, but look, I don't think that's gonna like Loughrea. I suppose the experience last year as well and how to maybe approach the few weeks off will stand to them this year. The fact they had it last year as well, and the more than John said in terms of the celebrations, I'm sure leading up to the semi final as well, they'll have learned a lot from last year, and the weight is off their shoulders now, and they can attack it a bit more than what they did last year. And like I suppose it'll be a different type of a match. It always is when you're playing an Ulster team. I think we mentioned before we went on air there, like that. Those teams are obviously a lot more physical and stuff like that. And John mentioned Parnell Park mightn't be in the best condition, so there's a lot to take into account, and it'll be a totally different game than what they've played in any game in Galway this year. It won't be as free flowing. The hurling probably won't be as the ball won't be moving around as quick, so it'll be a bit more physical, I'd say. And I think Loughrea's physical side will have to come out more so than their hurling to get them over the line on Sunday.
Is this where the Nafina game starts getting mentioned, do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, look at it. Well, like you can approach, like you could probably mention it in and use it in a way of you don't want to be having the same feeling after the final whistle is blown, and the expectation of maybe getting to a final and not being able to get there and stuff like that. You could use so many you could use so many aspects of the game to go into, but I don't think you're going to get caught up in too much how the game plays out because um, it's a totally different style of hurling, I think, compared to a northern team. And we've seen that so far in the Ulster Championship. Like it's just very, very physical. And now, don't get me wrong, as John said, like there's plenty of lads that can hurl and plenty of lads that can hurt you. But physically, athletically, they're very strong. And what I've seen them so far anyway, very good at running the ball, very good at tackling and stuff like that. So, Loughrea are just going to have to be on it. They're going to have to be sharp, be ready, very ready for the physical side of it. And I suppose if they are moving the ball, that they're moving it very fast, and not dilly dallying on the ball because all these Ulster teams in the past to be down on top of you very quick, and that's where they really thrive in that.
Yeah, even back to last year, John. Obviously, ran Navina very close. Could have got a free at the end, possibly. And then you see what Nafina went on and did. Maybe they're not regrets, but there's definitely an opportunity when you see what Nafina did in the final last year.
Ah, yeah, that was a fine Fina team, and sure, we were sort of going into the unknown a good bit last year, so we wouldn't have been familiar with Nafina, wouldn't have been familiar with the occasion either. And actually coming out of it, I was quite proud. Because I did about a 6 week break last year after winning final for a long time. I thought we did incredibly well. As you said, desperately unlucky at the end, maybe with that free, but we probably left that game behind us a bit in the first half, I thought. Um, and then maybe that break about 6 weeks, we weren't as maybe like weren't as match sharp in the second half. Then when Nafina kind of took over, but like that's all experience now, and I'm sure the guys will have taken all that into account. Taking the break, they'll have they'll have analysed Slaughtneil to an inch of their lives now at this stage, and they'll use that break probably a bit better maybe than they did last year. So to get lads right from injury, um, just to really fine tune their game, work on themselves because so. But last year, yeah, regrets a few, but you
Is
know,
there, do you think there's an element maybe that you're stronger this year? Because obviously Jamie was fairly battling all year last year with injury, and even chatting to Paul Open a few weeks ago, he was saying that he didn't train in the lead up to the All Ireland semi final either.
yeah, we probably are. Let's say the likes of Vince Morgan has been added in. Year senior hurling under his belt. Martin McManus is back. Younger lads like Hansy, Shane Morgan, Colin Killeen. They've an extra year's senior hurling done. Um, the older guys, they're still motoring really, really well, so I don't think they're being affected that way. Um, yeah, we probably are stronger. Now, some of our performances earlier in the year wouldn't have indicated that, but towards the end of the year, I think, yeah, we were really on tune. And, when you can be bringing on the likes of Neil Keary and Mark McManus and Alan Kelly and those, and there's a few guys behind it. So I'd say we probably are a bit stronger than last year. But I think this is an entirely different game than the Nafina game. Like that was in Thurles. I know the weather was bad, but the Thurles sod was in excellent condition. We're up in a different kettle of fish now in Parnell Park. I believe the pitch isn't in the best of nick. So this is, I don't know what you learned from last year.
No better
Bar
men
the
than
experience.
Gavin and Tommy. Obviously, they know Parnell Park fairly well from their time in Dublin.
Ah, they will. Yeah, they will. Sure, they had a good few years, quite successful years up there. But yeah, they know the scene well up there. They know the way to it anyway. Definitely.
It definitely does, Craig, feel like Loughrea are stronger going into this one.
Oh, yeah, for all the reasons John just said there, like, and the experience of a year's hurling for so many of those lads, and definitely the likes of Martin McManus back, Jamie fully right, that sort of stuff. Those experiences and stuff like that. So, but look at it, like just from my own experience, I remember when the first semi final we played Killarmaclahy, and the moment and the enormity of it, like, can eat you up sometimes. Like, I still remember to this day getting on the bus in O'Grady's, and it's not just heading down to Athenry or into the stadium. Like, you're going outside the county, you're going, say, for that time we went to Limerick, like, and it's a different type of buzz, like, and it can eat you up a small bit the first time around. You know what I mean? Like, and you can get caught up in the whole thing, and you're like a rabbit in headlights. And especially for any lad that has been on a county panel, a senior county panel, and there was only one, I'd say, in the county panel that time in 14, and you're not used to travelling outside the county to play games, and you're coming into this, into Limerick, and you're going out on the pitch, and it's all very much like a big
Is it
dream,
hard?
like.
Is it hard not to think of the prize?
Well, like, for me, the prize was the last thing in my mind, run out into the pitch in Limerick in my first Ireland semi final, because all I was thinking was get into the game and nerves, nerves, nerves. Now, that might be the same for everyone, but the second time we played them, we played Ballyhale, and that goes out. You've already that done. You've experienced that. You've been on the bus and you've met everyone, and you've been through that already. So that doesn't even come in. The second time around, you're thinking, right, this is here now to be won. Like, don't leave this behind and go at it. Like, and I think Loughrea will be the same the next day. Like, and John's touched on it there. Like that last year, it was into the unknown. Like, they didn't really know what to expect. Like, it was their first county final in X amount of years since 2006, and the club itself, not just the players, but the club didn't know what to expect, and they were heading up to Thurles, and it was a totally different stage. Supporters were obviously high, and players are meeting them during the week, and you can get caught up in it. And now, don't get me wrong, they didn't. They were right in the game and had every chance to win it. But I think that'll stand to the next day, like, because all that is done now. They've all experienced. It's only been 12 months ago, and they've been through it all before. So now they can just really, really concentrate on the game. Whereas last year, you're trying to think of all the different avenues to be thinking about and stay away from him and concentrate on that. Whereas now we can just go out and focus. And I think that'll be massive to Loughrea the next day. Like, and don't get me wrong, they're coming up against the Slaughtneil team that have been in a lot of that have lost five All-Ireland semi-finals, I think, this group, since 2018 or something like that. So they've been around the block as well. Like, and I think two of them have been in Parnell Park, two of those semi-finals, so they'll know the pitch fairly well as well, and that. But I still think Loughrea, I think, for all those reasons, nearly a full panel to pick from. A Shane O'Brien back as a year,
Yes, he's back training now.
back
Back
training.
training.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's another good bonus to have there as well. Like, so nearly a full panel for Loughrea. Like, whereas you knew going into semi-final last year, I don't think they had that. Like, and you're always worried about Jamie's thumb, or obviously Martin wasn't there, and you had all these kind of worries. Where, from from what I've heard anyway, and even listen to John there, like, it's things seem to be going really well. Like, and I just think the experience of last year will definitely stand to them.
Can you see Loughrea throwing a bolter? Maybe throwing someone in that we haven't seen as much from this weekend.
I just think that, like, I was actually looking at that today when I was going through the bits, like, that if you actually look at their team and you look at the county final, it's very hard to turn around and say to someone from the county final, we're going to drop you if you're going on the last game that was played, because, like, in all fairness to Loughrea, let's be honest, like, that game should have been out of sight at half time. Like, if they had their shooting boots on, they left Thomas's in the game for the second half, and some of the hurling they played in the first half was absolutely brilliant. Like, the quick ball into full forward line, and the way the lads worked inside, and especially Darren Shotensey and Anthony, like, they were just on form. Like, and Vince Morgan, like, I just thought that it was, if they play like that the next day, I don't think they'll have a worry. But probably efficiency would be the biggest aspect, I'd say, that might be talked about over the last 7 weeks, and being more efficient in front of goal.
Yeah, county final they did everything right, bar the end product. Like the diagonal ball into the full forward line constantly was unbelievable.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
Like, yeah, and you're probably talking. You're coming up against two or three of the best full back line this club or this county has seen club level for the last 6 7 years, with Finton and Key Mahoney and whoever else. Evan was back there for a while, and, like, but they played it to a T. Like, they played to their strengths, and albeit it probably took them a bit longer than expected to get over the line and get that vital goal at the end when Darren got it. Like, they created so many chances, and, like, I'm sure in the lads, Gavin and Tommy and all them, and they're going back through the the clips over the last couple of weeks and putting them on the telly for the lads, that they're saying when you get the chance, goal, 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 and you have to be more efficient. And it's the same the next day. Like, though they scored a goal in every championship game they played this year. They've scored lots in some. They scored four against Mike Cullen. They scored four against Clonmere Daly. So they are there. Like, they've loads of goals. Like, I was looking at it today. They've 8, 9, 10. They've 13 goals scored this year already in club championships. So they are there. It's just when the chance comes to take it, because in this type of weather, these conditions, goals are so important, because it's not going to be that much of as John said, compared to last year in Thurles, it's not going to be a free flowing game where there's going to be 25 or 6 points and it's going to be, scores from all sides. It'll be really a dogged, and when the opportunity comes for goals, that unlike the county final, just go for it and take it.
Is that the one area, John, you feel that they'll be looking to improve this weekend?
Oh yeah, definitely. As Greg said, like I think we were comfortably the better team against Thomas's the last day, but no, I think a lot of the goal chances that we didn't take came down to excellent last ditch defending from Thomas's. In fairness to them, there was some great blocks there in the first half, but yeah, the we while we've a good few goals scored this year, we've always kind of struggled for goals. But I think Vince sort of gives us a bit of more of a cutting edge inside Vince Morgan this year. So if we can feed them, stay giving them the same type of ball, and if the guys can become a bit more, I don't know, just maybe, like more ruthless in front of goal, we will get those chances to put games away a bit earlier, because watching from the stands, it's cruel sometimes watching them. When you're a better team than somebody and you're just about getting over the line, it's tricky. I just wish they'd make it a bit easier on us. Sort of, yeah. It's just not easy watching them sometimes.
Can you see them changing the starting 15, or maybe a surprise this weekend, John? Like, I suppose it's been the same team in the semi-final and final, and as Craig mentioned, it is hard to look even at who, if someone was to miss out, because in fairness, most of these players who have started have performed excellently.
Yeah, I can't see, unless some late injuries or something like that. I foresee the same team starting. Um, you know, maybe the timing of subs, they might get a few guys out a bit earlier, depending how they're moving at training and stuff. But I couldn't see any changes now, to be honest, unless enforced. There's still a couple of training sessions where anything can happen between now and Sunday. But I'd say if everyone full and healthy, I'd say that you'd be looking at the same team.
Is there an element of potentially moving someone into the full back line? Because if you just think of it, obviously Paul Hoban, Johnny Cohen, and Kieran Hanrahan have been excellent, but Brendan Rodgers, he's a big, big man inside.
He is, but like I still think that there's a nice mix and balance in there. Like I think Hansi could match him for speed, and like Hansi's as strong as anyone. He might look small, but he's not gonna, like, he went out with Mark Conor Cooney in the county final and he wasn't found wanting strength wise. So like I wouldn't be a bit afraid of Hansi on him. The other guy, Shea Cassidy, was nice hurler too. He's dangerous enough. But I do think, like I can't think of who you would move back to pick up one of them. I think they do an awful lot of their damage out the field. They score heavily from points from long range. So you don't want to be, and even Brendan Rodgers does play a lot of the time out the field. So you wouldn't want to be thinking too much about full back lines and full forward lines. I don't think like you win the battle in around the middle first, and then that becomes, if you win it out there, your full back line has a lot of easier chance, or easier game in their hands. So I wouldn't be moving anyone back out of danger.
Mm.
I'd be just looking to try break even in the middle of the field at least, and then take it from there.
Then Greg, is maybe Ian Hanrahan the man Loughrea get to man mark Christian McCaig at the weekend?
Yeah, he's been very good at that kind of role all year, hasn't he? Even last year, Ian, like he's a real wiry kind of a figure like that. you know, could take on that. Like, no, Cullen Clean as well, like, could be well able for that if needs be. Like, but Ian seems to be a bit more experienced like that, and you could probably let Cullen do a bit more roaming up and down the field, and lean mark, and probably would suit best, I'd say. Even though Ian has popped up with a few points as well over the course of the championship, bombing forward. So, but as John said, I don't think Loughrea should get caught up too much on man marking the next day, and they didn't really in the county final. In all fairness, they kind of played an awful kind of a free flowing like bear. As you were saying, Kieran came out and Mark Connor for a while, but other than that, there wasn't really a massive amount of marking, even with the likes of Aine and stuff wasn't marked at the county final. So I don't think Loughrea should get caught up in that and just worry about their own game really. And in terms of like the subs there that you mentioned, like to have the likes of Martin McManus come on, Sean Sweeney, Tom Hooban, they're all big physical men as well. Like if it does get into a physical battle, that you could maybe spring them a bit earlier and add a bit of size. Like, and like obviously Vince Darren and well, Anthony's big, but Vince and Darren in particular, like probably a small bit smaller inside, and that it might give them a different option where you could bring them out the field and put Martin inside for a bit of height and strength, and Sean Sweeney obviously he'll be coming in around the middle of the field there. He'll add a bit of strength and stuff like that. So that's the joys of Loughrea, I suppose, as well. They've a real mix of a panel as well, like John to come on, and like even the likes then the likes of Alan Kelly to come on as well, then for a bit of speed as well. So a bit of everything.
Particularly Craig, as we mentioned, obviously Slaughtneil's strong in the middle third, but Loughrea they're so flexible. Like Tiernan and Cayman Killeen can both end up in that middle third as well for them.
Yeah, and like Tiernan has come out, like more Brendan Rodgers. Tiernan has come out and played a lot of his, in particular that Clare Bridge game. He came way out the field to midfield and picked off a lot of points and played a lot, kind of like nearly a third midfielder there, that Roman 11. So, and look, Jamie can do that as well. Like Jamie has a tendency to flow back into the half back line. So look at as John said, the middle third is going to be absolutely massive. Like, and I think that's where Loughrea really drove on this year. Like they don't get me wrong, they were good last year, but Shane Morgan, I suppose, the experience of being inside in the county panel there for the year as well has really brought him to the next level. I thought he did an excellent county final. His frees were brilliant, obviously. Joe Mooney's loads of experience here as well. Joe's a big, strong, physical man. And I suppose Brian Keary, like in all fairness, has been one of the best club hurlers in the last 2 or 3 years as well, like bombing up and down the wing. And that middle third really that Loughrea probably catapult so much attacks from and give great ball in. They've been winning every game really from maybe the last 10 or 15 minutes of the Clare Bridge game where Loughrea drove into the game all the way through to the Turtmore game and the Thomas's game. That has been the catalyst of that middle third there where they've just really took control of it and allowed them to hit the ball into full forward line where the likes of Darren and Anthony and Vince have been making hay. Like, so I presume that's the same way they're going to line out the next day. I can't see why they changed their style now going into an Ireland semi-final and get that diagonal ball that we spoke about there into the lads from as quick as possible from the middle third.
Some people are nearly maybe John taking Slaughtneil for granted, and I know it's one thing that people definitely won't do in Loughrea this weekend. You've seen it in the past, obviously with Cushendall. You obviously had a big battle with them back in the day, and Slaughtneil have been consistently here in All Ireland semi-finals. They gave Piercy from Limerick a great rattle there one year, so there's still a massive test awaiting Loughrea on Sunday.
Oh, huge! Like they won an Ulster final by 13 points 3 weeks ago. You know that the Ulster finals aren't easy won. They now St. John's. I don't know. I'm not sure how good they were, but they just weren't let her. Like they were absolutely ravenous in the tackle. Like the even the first half there, the St. John's they tried to play out from the back. They were hammered every time on the tackle, hammered every time in the tackle. Like they've some serious hurlers as well. Like that Cormac O'Doherty play midfield for them. He's a lovely hurler. Like he sort of makes them tick. He's a real smart hurler, you know. Like Shane McGuigan. Like the three football all stars, which you know, I know you might say they're footballers, but they're really good hurlers, and the athleticism and strength and tackling that those
That
guys can do.
athleticism from the football is so evident in their play.
That's But no, I was watching that Ulster final, and like Brendan Rodgers gets a ball in his hand and he's gone. Like there's a 5 yard gap within 10 steps nearly. Like just that, and Shane McGuigan is constantly bombing up and down the left hand flank there, getting shots off from wing back. Um, No, we will not underestimate the challenge that's coming up on Sunday. Like realistically, they should have been in an All Ireland final last year. They against Saracens, they were beating a point. Saracens in Cork. They missed a chance at the end there where it was really easier to score a goal and put it over the bar, and that would have sent them through. Like they've played all the big like they've played Ballygunner in a semi final. They've played Ballyhale. I think there's only 5 points in those games. They played in a Piercic. They gave them a good game. I think they got a bit of a clipping one time against Coola, but Coola were very good back
Mm.
then. But no, they won an Ulster final by 13 points, and their shooting was atrocious in the first half that game. So these guys are serious, and we're well aware of the challenge that's coming up against us on Sunday. And if Loughrea aren't off, if they're off in any bit, we'll be in trouble. So we need everyone going well and everything going right to get over these guys.
Yeah, we actually have Micky McCullough, former Dublin hurling coach, in the next part of the show. Now, we'll advise a couple of the Loughrea supporters. He's very strong on Slaughtneil winning this weekend, so I don't think too many Loughrea supporters are going to be agreeing with him there from this week's podcast. But Parnell Park, Craig, it is the one venue where I'd say when Galway hurling supporters hear Parnell Park, it's almost roll the eyes and stuff. From your own experience, will Loughrea need to alter anything because it obviously is tight, Parnell Park and winter hurling as well. Will they need to alter anything with their game plan this weekend in Parnell Park?
My most hated place in all of Ireland, my most hated pitch in Paul. They might cruise shit up there. But no, they will definitely because it's definitely if you went to Pearse Stadium or if you're even in Athenry for that matter, but in particular Pearse Stadium county final, like when you're hitting them diagonal balls, the space is not the same as the stadium. Like the sidelines are a lot more in. It's a tighter pitch. It's a long pitch. It's a very long pitch, but it's definitely tighter. Like so, the only thing you probably have to maybe the angles of the runs and the direction of the ball that you're putting in maybe won't be as wide as what it would be in the stadium. Because when you're crossing the ball in the stadium and you're hitting it in, you can just drive it as far as you want because you know it's not going to go over the line. So maybe the trajectory of the ball and stuff like that. And but no, look at it. I suppose the thing about that as well is it's more than another northern team if they start getting on top and stuff like that. The thing about Parnell Park is you're very much, the fans are in on top of you, and it turns into a real kind of a cauldron of roaring and shouting. So it can very easily. So I suppose Loughrea and does that is you don't want to try and like if you more than the county final if you have a chance to maybe push on in the game or maybe don't give them hope because they like let's be honest about it, we all know northern teams they're very vocal and the fans can be very vocal and if you give them a chance at all to get behind their team they will. So yeah, look at it. I can't see a massive amount. Maybe the puck outs as well from Garage might have to change a small bit with the likes of Parnell Park, like and what you do with it, and if you get the space, like if the cornerbacks are getting the ball like they were in the county final, what way you work it, I suppose that'd be another way of doing it compared to Parnell Park. You might be getting more space down along the wing, and but other than that, no, Paul. I suppose it's going to be the same kind of idea and same game plan that they had in the county final.
What needs to go right for Loughrea on Sunday to win?
I suppose a quick start, Paul, and like just be ready for the fight and be ready for the work rate and be ready to expect what you get from Slaughtneil or any Northern team that ever come through and that they will be absolutely in your face. And I think just for Loughrea, I think the biggest thing is that win the middle third and just counter every single ball they get, like and get it into the full forward line. And I think the more than the county final, I think the same thing has to go right. Ball gets won, the lads take on the man and they go for they tap the ball over the bar. Like and in particular, like it worked really well with Darren in the county final where the ball was put in front of him and Anthony came into it, especially in the second half, the ball was put in front of him and I think that's probably what's worked really well for Loughrea. In it probably the same against Turlough in the semi final, that ball in. So and the full back line nice and tight. Johnny and Paul in particular, like obviously Kieran's been absolutely flying it all year, but Johnny and Paul like so much experience back there and just keep it nice and tight and not to be conceding goals either, I suppose is the flip side of it.
What would a place in the All Ireland final and playing in Croke Park mean, John, to the club?
Sure. It'd be amazing. We were there once before. So it's where every club at the start of the year, it's the ultimate aim for every club to get there. Used to be Paddy's Day, but I think it's 18th of March or January or something this year. But yeah, like sure, the levels of excitement. It's hard to imagine that they could go up any more than they are now. But I'd imagine if it is a final, the excitement around the town would be amazing. But yeah, like it's a special place to get to. You start to you put your sort of club on the map, on the hurling map, national hurling map, when you get through these games. Um, but yeah, like we just we're not worrying about the All Ireland final just yet, so it's hard to to comment on it. But yeah, it'd be great to get there. It'd really make the Christmas be a real Christmas present for us if we win on Saturday.
Do you feel like maybe, I know last year the club all stars were picked and they obviously didn't get a player, which was a bit of a surprise in the end considering how close you pushed Nafina. But do you maybe feel like this team hasn't got the credit it deserves nationally yet?
Um, Yeah, but like you get like you earn that recognition, and ultimately we played one game in the All Ireland series last year, and albeit we played well, but we didn't win it. So, and we've no provincial championships to push your credentials forward to people. Um, so yeah, I think you don't deserve unless you earn it, So they have to go out on Sunday now and earn it, and then they might start getting the recognition they deserve nationally.
And even for Galway hurling, Craig, this could be a massive result too at the weekend.
Yeah, it'd be massive for Galway hurling. Yeah, like and look at I suppose in terms of even Galway hurling, like I think Loughrea have definitely got the recognition they deserve for this team doing the double and doing back to back. Like and like that, there's so many of those hurlers there that I seen the outpour of emotion last year when they won the county final, and it was such a long time for the club and for a club of that size and like the amount of county finals that Loughrea have lost in between when they won their last one and that. To think that they just won back to back so soon. Like, and I remember seeing someone introduce them, in particular the older lads like Johnny and Paul and Jamie and all them that, it was so good for the club. And here they are now after doing back to back. And, like, it'll be massive for Galway hurling if they go on and go and compete. Like, look at it, in all fairness to Thomas's, like, they were great ambassadors for the county. And, they represented us so well. And, like Loughrea will be the same the next day, and if they can get over the line and get to an Ireland final, it'll be absolutely brilliant for the county. And I think, to be honest, it's the boost that the county needs at the minute because they've probably been under a lot of criticism, in particular the senior team, Galway senior team, for the last couple of years. And I think this could be a good boost, and there's so much young talent there as well that'll probably be involved with Galway going forward for the year. And it'll just be a great boost, Paul, all around. And I think that. It's only been a few years since Thomas won it last, and it'd be great to see another Galway team there bringing home the trophy.
Are you hearing much about the Galway senior team at the minute?
Not an awful lot, no.
Yeah.
Bits and pieces really, like, and but no, I won't lie, I haven't heard an awful lot. No, it's been kept under arms only. Yeah, but I haven't really been talking to many either, now, to be honest. But no, just basically a few ins and outs. That was it, really.
Yeah, it does seem like it's quite enough at the minute in that regard. Um, Obviously, it's not something you're thinking about now, John, but you would expect Kieran Hanrahan, he's a name that jumps out. You would expect he has to be someone that's going to be involved in a Galway senior hurling panel this year.
Yeah, he has to be really. I'm not sure if he's been called in. I don't know if any of the Lockyer lads. They definitely haven't gone in training or anything. But yeah, sure, they have to be looking at him. He's been the best defender in Galway probably the last 2 years. Maybe three. I was very surprised he wasn't on the squad last year. But yeah, hopefully now he'll get the call in because I think he has the tools to step up to that level easily.
Just before we finish, John, how do you see it going at the weekend?
Um, yeah, sure. Heart says Loughrea. Um, never back against my own, but yeah, I just think we need to be excellent to win this on Sunday. We need to be at county final levels. uh, of our hurling, our touch, our slickness, everything needs to be at that level. That can be tricky to get to that level after an 8 week break, but I think if we can get back to that level, we'll win. If we're off, we're in serious bother. We're in serious bother. But hopefully the guys have their homework done on Slaughtneil and we're all injury free and everyone's fit and hopefully we'll have a Loughrea win.
And how do you see it going, Craig?
Yeah, I'd be fairly similar to John. Like, I think that Loughrea need to be really on it and just be ready for a totally different type of the physical element compared to what they've witnessed and experienced in Galway so far this year. Like, but I think they have the tools to do it. I think if they do perform to their full potential and even with the subs they have coming on, I think that they've everything in the right place and they've all the equipment needed. It's just a matter of just performing and as John said, getting that performance from the county final 7 weeks ago to Sunday. If you can just get that levels up and get them up really quick. Um, I put it like this: I think Loughrea will win by a few points, but I think it'll be an absolute dogfight. I don't think it'll be a good spectacle at all to watch. But I think it'll be a real good dogfight. Loughrea by maybe 2 or 3 points after a dogfight.
Just a word too on Athenry Camogie team at the weekend, forcing a replay laid on against St. Finbarrs. Therese Mayer, now known as Therese Donoghue, at the age of 44. You'll have to stay going for another few years, so Craig, will you?
Jeez, I tell you, I could stay going for another 20 years and I wouldn't match that woman.
Oh, she's
She's
unbelievable.
she's a different level. In all fairness to her, like she was just like the time was nearly up and she was running as fast as she was in the first minute and you were just wondering where is she getting that stamina from. There was girls out on their feet like they were probably 20 years younger than her. She was just absolutely unbelievable like and she's a credit like as Jessica Gill like you know she's gone through her own issues with her knees and stuff like that ACLs and like even I didn't realise till afterwards that Sabina Rabbit did her cruise shit in the county final and she was playing through that like and
Yeah.
you know it was just all in all like it was such a heartwarming finish as a Galway person to see the way they came back and so there was so many subplots and so many stories leading up to it that you just were wishing them and pushing them and hoping that they get over the line like and you know the fact that look they probably could have won it for a finish but definitely so happy to get the replay and you know I think that they definitely won't have that lull in the middle of the match where they played so poorly and let the Finbars go ahead like so much so yeah I can't wait for the replay.
It was incredible, John, wasn't it? Like 6 points down.
Uh,
The way
it
they
was,
came
yeah.
back into that was incredible character.
Yeah, and like just going back to Therese, like she's kind of dragged them through that game, kicking and screaming. You know, Therese in my year in school, we went to school together, like, and I'm telling you, I wouldn't, I wouldn't manage Crow Park for 5 minutes, never mind 60 minutes. No, and no, but yeah, no, a great fighting spirit. Quite often with Galway teams in the past, you know, when they're down, they're gone. So that could have turned into a 10 point beating, but they show great grit and determination. But there's great surnames in that Athenry squad. You know, there's Higginses, there's Rabbits, you know, and I said Mahers and. But yeah, Therese, we just wish Johnny was as fit as her and he could have stayed on hurling a bit longer, you know. He won't thank me for saying that, but
Just
fair
as
play
well,
to them.
for people who weren't aware, that game obviously goes to replay on January 3rd and 4th, and the Galway Hurlers as well. Their fixtures for the league, it's Tipperary in round one on the 24th of January at 7 p.m. Cork then on the 31st of January at home at 7 p.m. in Pearse Stadium. They play Offaly then in Birr on the 22nd of February. Then it's Waterford in Pearse Stadium on the 1st of March, followed by Kilkenny on the 7th of March in Pearse Stadium, and then Limerick in the Gaelic grounds on the 21st of March to finish off their National Hurling League. They'll obviously have Walsh Cup before that as well. And just finally, lads, obviously we didn't mention the other semi-final. It's hard not to see Ballygunner coming through the other one, Craig.
Yeah, look at I suppose the way they've gone about themselves, the Munster in particular, like and they've been exceptional. Do you know what I mean? Like they've and look at the more than Slaughtneil, they've really gained a lot of experience down through the years and playing so many, and I suppose that Munster hoodoo as well. Look at it, they probably are the standard bearers for club hurling for the last couple of years. Let's be honest about it. Even though they probably haven't, they've let themselves down in not winning as much as they'd like to when it gets to their Ireland series and Munster series. But they have an unbelievable panel of players, and they really have the ingredients. And they're starting to get lads back now as well. Like Pádraig Mahony obviously played the last day and missed the semi final against Napier and he's back now. And they just what they have there, like down in Waterford and even the underage there, like the structures they've in place and the amount of numbers they have and the amount of teams they have, and I seen them in Fela this year, like they're just it's a different gravy, like. And yeah, I think that look at St. Martin's, it was absolutely brilliant what they did against Ballyhale, and it was like they played out of their skin and the way they finished the game, and it was a great buzz for them, like. But I think they're really up against it. Like I think Ballygunner are just they are the team that I would tip out of the four left, like John, in terms of experience and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that I can't see past them against Martins in it.
Yeah, they look like men on a mission, really, don't they?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're a lovely team, really are. They're so slick. Their hurling it's unbelievably slick, and they've some killer forwards inside there, and Desi Hutchinson and Fitzgerald, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, but they'll have it all to do to beat Martins, you know. The way the O'Connors are hurling, you know, Rory's a special talent. Like
Mhm.
he could go to town and crack 3 goals, and you know rip up the script as well, you know. But
Yeah.
on all known form, it probably does look like a Ballygunner win.
Yeah, we'll be hoping for a Ballygunner Loughrea final, hopefully in January there. But the very best of luck to the Loughrea players and management this weekend. As I mentioned, 1:30 Sunday in Parnell Park, live on TG4 for those who can't make it. And Limerick man Johnny Murphy is the man in the middle this weekend. But that's all we do have time for on today's show. Thanks to John and Craig for coming on to this week's podcast. In part two of the show, I'm delighted to be joined by former Dublin hurling coach Micky McCullough to get the take on what challenge Slaughtneil will pose to Loughrea this weekend. First off, Mickey, no one really knows, I suppose, what to expect. It's Loughrea and Slaughtneil. It's a novel enough pairing in the All Ireland semi-final this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Slotney over the last number of years have managed to get themselves up for, let's call it the so-called bigger teams, when they faced the Pierceak and faced Ballyhale. So, Loughrea would be a novel pairing for them. And I would imagine both Loughrea and Slotney will see this as a great opportunity of going one step further.
Obviously, you know the Loughrea man on the line fairly well in Tommy Kelly. You would have worked with him with the Dublin Hurlers.
Well, Tommy's a great fella, great old Ireland man too, isn't he? I would have knew Greg better, and Greg obviously would have been great mates for him. But Tommy's fairly, not fairly, he's very astute, very clever in his thinking. And here, funny as I was saying to you earlier, I met him during the year, and he actually was talking about he needed to get a challenge game with either Dunloy or Slaughtneil and give it. So it's funny the way the world works. He doesn't get a challenge game anymore; he gets a proper game.
Obviously, you've probably been watching on from with watching on Loughrea from a distance. Have you been surprised at their rise, particularly over the last 2 years, or did you always see this coming for them?
For Loughrea.
Yeah,
Well, sure, look, Ray were always producing players, and again, you sort of listen to, I remember listening to Greg and stuff, and Tommy, and even Gavin at the time. You know, but with the three lads even just mentioned there, you're talking three inter-county coaches. When you have that knocking about your club, then you're always going to start to produce players. I always think the level of coaching is ultimately what develops the young players and stuff coming through. So with them type of lads involved, you're never going to not produce, if you get me. And then it gets to the stage of their ability to get teams over the line. And you look at Craig and you look at Tommy and look at even Gavin. They've all been there and done it at basically the highest level. So, from a coaching perspective, without really not necessarily knowing the ins and outs of Loughrea development players, but that, like if any club was bringing them type of lads in. If a team in Dublin brought them three lads in next year, or if Slaughtneil brought them three lads in next year, you'd be going, "Geez, this team's going to go well."
Obviously, people are referenced back to Loughrea's All-Ireland semi-final defeat last year very narrowly to Nafina, and some people might have referenced back that it was a missed opportunity. Do you think maybe there's a bit of pressure when you see how close Loughrea came last year?
That pressure will come probably from themselves nearly. I know in years gone by, being involved with other teams, and you get beaten in a big game, you want to play that game again the very following week. But the year sometimes a long, long wait. Like they're probably holding themselves up there. If it can be a positive and a negative, it could be a positive in the fact that it could light that fire and give them that belief that the team that just about beat us went on and became All Ireland champions. But the other end of it could be, they're now 12 months waiting to get back, and 12 months is a long time to try and keep a team up. Whether they put that to the back burner to concentrate on the Galway Championship or whatever. But there's no doubt that Loughrea will have used that result and will reference that result in this week coming, going, that the team that beat us last year are All Ireland champions. So, and likewise, they're not going to they're not going to give that experience away easy. They've been there, they've experienced the big day, and they'll be able to recall and all that going forward.
Slaughtneil consistently being here over the last decade, I think it's safe to say really what they continue to do is remarkable.
I do think this is their year to get to the final. I really do. Like, they've they've regenerated their team year on year. When you look at the lads that started out in that crusade for one when they won their first Ulster title, and now maybe there's a remnant of one or two of them left, and you kind of always thought, ah, when they retire, they'll disappear. When they slip, but they haven't. They've just kept producing. There's a fellow would have worked with me now, Mickey Glover, who would have took that first Ulster team, and he's heavily involved, I think, with the underage and stuff up there. And I know another couple of lads that be involved in the underage, and they just keep producing team after team after team. And they've now kind of looked at it where they look to me from an outsider that they're now producing the lads, coming out of minors. They're not relying on seven minors coming through. They're getting one or two through every year who then buy into the process. And they look to me as a club who really does have a process of how they physically develop, how they technically and tactically develop. They brought in Paul McCormick as manager this year, and Paul's a very, very astute hurling man too. Has been around a long time and have an All Ireland football medal with Armagh back in '02. And has been around Armagh hurling for many, and Nicky Rackard, Christy Ring. And he'll have them very, very well prepared.
What is it that they continue to do to consistently be here? Because it's when they get to All Ireland semi-finals, they're competing. They've been really close, and people when they think of Slaughtneil probably think of the Slaughtneil team in 2015. They got to an All Ireland football final against Kerfin. Even we were referenced earlier on before we came on air about obviously Derry competing in Christy Ring, but Slaughtneil are able to keep getting here. What is it that's getting them here?
Hmm. As somebody I took a team against them one time before, and they don't get the hurling credit they deserve. A lot of people would look at them and just say they're dogs or they're animals, or it suits them this time of year, the physicality. But they can hurl too. The three or four lads there could walk on any club team in the country, and they have another batch of a middle batch, let's call them, who would easily grace 90% of the teams in the country. Um, and there's a freshness with him, and whether it's something that, like, realise I don't think it's doing a disservice. They nearly hurl part time, because they spend a fair bit of their chunk concentrating on football, and they nearly seem to me when you see them play, there's a real freedom to their hurling because it's nearly a freshness. They're just nearly going to enjoy their game. Like, they beat St John's there by what, 10 points in an Ulster final, but they'd maybe 20 odd wides. On another day, they could have walked away from an Ulster final 25-point winners. Um, and like, I know people want to knock St John's, but remember St John's knocked out Ross, and knocked out Cushendall, knocked out Lochiel on their way to that. So they're not, and I mean they're also a team in St John's that have been in Antrim semi-finals and tough Antrim semi-finals. for the last 6, 7, 8 years. So it's not as if I think a couple of people maybe wanted to knock St John's after it as if they were a poor team, and they're not. And the one thing that St John's definitely will bring is a physicality. But yet, in saying that, Slaughtneil blew them away. And you're going, they just seem to be getting, they seem to time their run at this time of year better and better every year. Like Chrissy retired the last year, the year before, and bang, there he's back in a new role. And I mean, he seems to be somebody that's kind of a heartbeat of, and maybe you're misreading him, maybe he's not, but he seems to me to be a bit of a heartbeat rounder where, he's the type of lad, whenever you're putting your boots on the cold day and you look over and you see him, you're going, yeah, I'm happy, I think we have a fair chance today. So and maybe with that, the answer to your question probably better is, are they a surprise package? Because even though they're there every single year, even though they've ran Ballyhale, even though they've ran the Piercing, they still come back in there every year with, they're just a dairy team, and they're just physical. And they're not. They're a very, very good hurling team that have seemed to have an incredible unity that's obviously been built up over a number of years. And I just think with the quality that they have and the togetherness they have, the squad that they have, the people looking after them that they have, the young players coming through that they have, I just don't think they're going to knock the door 10 times and not get through once.
Obviously, when people look at the team, they think of Derry footballers, Shane McGuigan at wing back, Brendan Rodgers on the edge of the square. Chrissy McCaig has recently stepped away from inter-county football at midfield, but drifts like they're obviously three huge players on the hurling field as well.
Oh, they're incredible. I mean, on any given day, the three of them would have been superstars for Derry hurling. They would have been three of the best. They are still three of the best hurlers in the province. They chose the football path. But, Brendan Rodgers has shown enough over the last 10 years to scare the life out of, like, I would imagine a fair bit of the conversation in Galway at the minute will be about how Brendan Rodgers is handled. But, I actually thought Chrissy played very well as a forward the other day, and it was that type of thing that it said to you, is that Shane McGuigan could appear in midfield. He could appear as a half forward. Chrissy could show the other day he could play in full forward. But if he lined out in midfield, you wouldn't be surprised. If he needed to go into full back to pick somebody up, you wouldn't be surprised. They have actually got that whole thing within their team that is quite malleable. Whether that's by design, by accident, or whatever. But they have so many lads can fulfil different roles. As I said earlier on before we come on, that like the lad Finn McEldowney, I don't think anybody ever saw him going in the centre back to pick up Connor Johnson, and yet did such an admirable job. So like they've so many answers to probably questions that haven't even been asked within their setup, and they seem such a coachable group. They don't seem to possess, like, I know there probably is egos. There's egos in every dressing room, but they all seem prepared to do whatever needs to be done for Slaughtneil to get the result. And sometimes at this time of year, when the elements come into play and the heavy pitches come into play, and the last, like everything goes down to the wire near this time. Sometimes having them selfless players is what makes the difference.
When people are probably people in Galway in particular talking about Slaughtneil, and maybe I think it's people in Galway in general, they're a bit maybe relaxed when it comes to Loughrea coming up against Slaughtneil this weekend. But then you're talking to other people this week, and people are beginning to, I suppose, get more nervous for Loughrea as the weekend approaches. Do you understand all of that?
Sure, like I said it to you at the start too. Whenever we're growing up, and you always, I thought, like when you were minor or colleges and you came through into the semi-final stages, you kind of got Munster, you were going, oh no. And you got Leinster and you were going, oh no. But the one that Ulster always fancied to run at was Connacht. Maybe it's never been, not that it's favoured us too much when it comes to percentage, but it was always the one you kind of believed in. And I'm sure massively that that feeling's mutual. I'm assuming that sitting in Loughrea, they're going, well, we've avoided Ballygunner and we've avoided St Martin's, who beat Ballyhale. Yep, Slaughtneil's the one we would like. But then, obviously Ballygunner created a dynasty over the last number of years. But outside of Ballygunner, I would nearly argue that Slaughtneil has been in the most semi-finals or has
Yeah.
the most experience of this in the last 10 years outside of Ballygunner. Um, and yes, so I can understand where the confidence would come from. But I definitely think that anybody with a shrewd hurling brain will not be confident heading into a battle with Slaughtneil in Parnell
Yeah.
Park.
Could you just describe Parnell Park to me? Because you've obviously trained there when you were involved with Dublin. You've experienced it in the winter and the summer, but it's going to be more of a winter game the next day.
There's a wind and a scoring end in Parnell Park, and sometimes it changes. Sometimes it's into the church end, but generally down towards the score or the scoreboard end, there always seems to be the strong wind going to the scoreboard end. The pitch is naturally a wee bit smaller, so all of a sudden your scoring range comes out round midfield, even half back of the days. Particularly with the day striking, but. It's just one of them games where you can win at half time 9 points up and think anywhere else you're safe. But in Parnell Park, that wind and that all of a sudden it comes to eight, and then it comes to seven. Then before you know it, you're at five, and then you're at three, and there's still 10 minutes to go. I remember even with Rossa, we played James Stevens there in '05, I think it was, and we warmed up into the church end, and simple shooting drill from maybe 30 yards out. You weren't even making the distance. It was that strong of a wind. I think we actually were maybe 11-0 down at half time. But coming out like 11-0 down to somebody, you're thinking there's going to end up 15, 16 points in this minimum. Whereas just due to the wind factor, I think we were maybe beat by four or something in the end. You get right back into it. We spoke before about St Thomas's and Cushendall. St Thomas is running about 9 points up. Cushendall come out with a win second half. So how you manage them elements in Parnell Park is massive, because it seems to create so much of a scoring opportunities. Even I remember back in 18 with Ballyboden, we played Crokes in the county final, and the county final that day went the extra time, and both your massive scoring contributions came in the second half of normal time and the first half of extra time when you were shooting down into the scoreboard end. And likewise, the opposite was the case for Crokes. So there's definitely a scoring end, and whoever makes A, the most of the scoring end opportunities, and B, whoever can make the most of the opportunities into the breeze. Like a point in that breeze nearly worth two or three, and even to kill time and stuff. I do think Parnell Park, of all the pitches around Ireland, just seems to have that it can turn on its head due to the weather.
Do you know when people say, when you come to Parnell Park particularly, Loughrea, the short game is something they like. They like to build the play. They like to get the diagonal balls inside to Darren Shaughnessy and Anthony Burns in particular. Is it about doing the basics right in Parnell Park, or do Loughrea and Slaughtneil, when it comes to this weekend, have to alter the game slightly for Parnell Park?
But I would even go as far as say, like again, you flip it, Parnell Park in the summer is a great place to play. At this time of year, this time of year, you're going to go out and it's going to be 2 degrees. There's going to be a wind. There's going to be rain. There's going to be, the basics is going to be key no matter where it is, whether it's Parnell Park, Park of Hever, Croke Park. But you'd mentioned there about how Loughrea like to play that short game, and yet to steal a soccer term, you see how Slaughtneil like to press. So I mean, if Slaughtneil get their press on inside that half, and particularly when you take the elements in this situation, if Loughrea aren't crisp and Slaughtneil get you turned over, you're in trouble.
Yeah. What do Loughrea need to get right this weekend if to come out on top?
I think they need to win the fight, and I'm not sure. I do think that no matter who, there's just something about Slotdale. They just seem to possess that real desire. And sometimes they come up short, but like that desire that they possess is something that's why I really think that they why I favour them this week. But I don't know enough about Loughrea the question their desire as such. But yeah, that would be like ultimately this time of year you've got to earn the right to hurl at some stage. So that'll come down. I'd say it'll be very very physical for long periods of time, and whoever can manage that the best, control that, win the rucks, win the break ball, and then make use of that next pass, that first pass out of after winning the battle, turning the tackle, or making a hook. What you do with the next ball is so important. I watched it even in the Ulster final. St John's did it a couple of times, and then just turned and ballooned the ball up the pitch straight back to Slaughtneil. Whoever's smart enough to come out of there with a simple pass, and then create something out of it, whether it's a scoreable free or an overlap or something. And then again, when you go into that, you're looking at who possesses real intelligence your mind just keeps, my mind anyway, just keeps getting drawn to Cormac O'Doherty. You know, if he's hanging about round there and they slip a ball out to him, he will make the right decision 99 times out of 100.
You might be getting a few phone calls from Tommy Kelly and Craig
Ah,
Monday evening.
Greg's been blocked now for 2 years.
I know when people talk about Slaughtneil, they'll talk about how massive this could be for Ulster hurling, but do you understand with Loughrea too why this could be massive for Galway hurling, considering maybe the last year or two Galway hurling has had as well?
Is it okay if I say I don't care about Galway Horn? You know, like use a bit a lot more than good days than we have. I'd love to see Slotney get through, but I can understand from a Galway perspective, your own Galway perspective, you sort of we equate if one of our club teams is going well, then the knock-on effect will be a county team going well. You know, whereas we have at Slotney pretty much dominant in Ulster for a number of years, yet Derry still sit in Christy Ring, so I don't really put it to that, but like we had Lane Cahill up there with a few players going around Belfast on Saturday past, or not on Saturday, but on Friday past, and the feel good factor and the noise and the buzz. There must have been 1,000 primary school kids were out over the course of that day, and you know that's ultimately as an Ulster person, that's all I really care about is that buzz round Ulster. And can we get a step in that? And obviously, Slot Neil getting over the line at the weekend and going on an Ulster or an All Ireland final would be massive for Ulster hurling. I don't think that Loughrea losing would be a dent for one. You know, it won't be a derailment of Galway hurling. I think Galway hurling will always continue to be strong. But if you're asking that honest question, I really don't care about Galway hurling. I'd love Ulster to get a win this weekend.
It does really feel like though this one's going to be tight, doesn't it? That it's going to go really down to the wire. That there's not that's going to separate much of these teams as you would expect in an All Ireland semi final.
The minute that it was named in Parnell, I just got that feeling going that this is the one. You know, you've seen I've seen Slaughtneil before, when the first won it with Mickey and they had a go Mickey Glover that was, and then Mickey McShane was there for a number of years, and they were so close on a number of occasions, and then you're going, Paul's in them now, and I just don't believe a team with that togetherness and that unit that they have will consistently fall short. I think they're going to get that door open at least once.
You've been very clear about your belief for Slaughtneil to win, but it wouldn't be a surprise, I presume, either if Loughrea were to win for you.
But you know, I mean, like I think this game will be a point or two either way. But it's just it's the time of year where an Ulster person we always love to dream that this is our ability. You know, like Dunloy were so close a number of years. Lockheed have done it. You know, it's been our most successful. You know, when we go inter county, we don't have that success. Minor, under 20s, under 21s it was. But the club seems to bring us, and particularly senior club, not even so much intermediate or junior, but particularly senior club seems to bring us so close to that promised land. You know, that top table. So it's probably with that you're going. We have traditionally been very, very close. You know, we've traditionally not been far away. You know, I remember back Ballygalget running Newton Chandram to a couple of points. As say we did it with Dunloy, were the poster boys. Lucky have done it twice. You know, so Ulster has a good tradition of showing up on All Ireland semi-final day. We probably haven't got over the line as much as we would maybe like to, but we do have that ability. And I just think with the slot nine kind of mentality they seem to have, that if they keep showing up, I just think that they're going to create that history for Derry at one stage.
How do you see the other semi final going, Ballygunner and Martins?
I know you alluded to earlier on. I think you're very right in that. But Ballygunner just seem to know what they're doing, and Martin's, weddings, celebrations, whether they'll time it right or whether the eye slightly comes off a ball, you probably can't take your eye off that's like a steam train that Ballygunner are at the minute. So I fancy Ballygunner in that one, like.
I obviously did ask you about Galway hurling there, but just on it on the year gone by for Galway, obviously lost the Leinster final, came up short against Tipperary in the All Ireland quarter final. Where do you feel the Galway senior hurlers are at the minute in relation to contenders for All Irelands?
Seem to be like a county in transition really at the minute, aren't they? You know, they don't. they kind of don't. They had a great identity there for a number of years, obviously when Joe and all was up playing, and they seem to now just be nearly searching for that identity again, whether that's through management structures, know the change and stuff in management. Um, Underage hasn't been what it has been in previous days gone by, and you kind of wonder is what's happened to say Antrim for talk's sake and Ulster starting to now creep in with the lack of competitive games, with the lack of a Connacht championship, all the other. I know you're getting to play in Leinster, but you know it just seemed whether it's a travelling situation or whatever, just Galway seemed to be just looking for that identity again. And but then the thing with Galway is they always seem to every time you think that they're starting to drift away, they find another superstar hurler that all of a sudden lights the place up. And like from a physical point of view, they're massive. I think Galway is one of the biggest teams I ever faced. So when you look at the Limericks and stuff of this world now, everybody talks about their conditioning, but Galway is as good as anybody. I know I'm not sure who you have in, but you said Lucas in there for a long time.
Yeah, Lucas would have been, and it would have been Johnny O'Connor. He would have played Robbie O'Connor. He would have been there last year, but they've actually changed the strength and conditioning coach now again this year.
But you get but like physically they tick every box, but sometimes and I wouldn't nobody would know what goes on in Galway. But I remember Matty Kenny telling me one time when I think that we played them and there was a bit of a fallout, and Matty always said to me that's why they're called the tribe. So you probably you get of things going on behind the scenes there that nobody knows, but it's what they seem to be one of the counties that when it clicks and all of a sudden it takes one player. You're not talking about a chain of, but one new player breaking through from twenties or one player returning all of a sudden can change the whole landscape. If you go back to it, like they weren't a million miles off Tipperary, who are the sitting now All Ireland champions. So, in your point earlier on to me was about Loughrea looking at Nafina and saying, well, we were very close to that. Surely we can go and do that. Like Galway have to be sitting somewhere going, well, we were very close to that. So surely we can go and do it. And they do possess the hurlers, whether possibly they haven't replaced the scoring threat that Joe once was. Connor Whelan always sort of looks like he's about to burst out with 210 and never actually really gets that. And maybe, somebody like him or something that can take that mantle on and go and start to get bigger scores will definitely help at that end of the pitch. Like,
Just finally, Mickey, do you see the All Ireland race open again this year?
has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Has to be like. I mean, I don't think Liam would shoot me for saying it, but like Tip were kind of a shock last year coming out of it. While they're great hurlers and actually even meeting some of the lads at the weekend, they're so grounded. What I knew Tip hurlers in the past who loved it, but these lads are so grounded, you can nearly feel it in them. They're going to go again. Cork have to be sitting somewhere going, we had that one. Kilkenny are definitely closing that gap again. Limerick aren't going to roll over straight away.
Great stuff, Mickey. Thanks very much for your time this evening.
No bother, Paul. All the best, mate.